story time about one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in high school. So a little background information. I was in my freshman year of high school. Well, spring break was coming up. Well, the whole year, my friend and I hadn't been to one single party. So we decided that we wanted to try and go to a party every single day of spring break, which was about to be super difficult because we had to worry about my strict-ass parents and my neighbors. A little background info on my neighbor. My neighbor is this girl who's in my same grade, and she literally hates my guts. I don't know why, but literally anything that I do, she'll go and she'll tell her mom, and then her mom will tell my mom, because my mom and her mom are best friends. But before we know it, Saturday comes around, and we go back to school on Monday. We did not make it to one single party. Well, later that night, we found out that one of our friends was throwing one. So around 11 o'clock, everybody's sleeping, and I walk out my back door, hop over my fence, and I start heading towards the road where my friend was going to be parked. You know, who do I see fucking sitting outside on their porch reading a fucking book? My fucking neighbor. Like for part 2. Part 2 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, the bitch that I hate is sitting out on her porch reading a fucking book at 11 o'clock at night. So I crouch down so she couldn't see me. I run to the car, and my friend and I finally go to the party. Well, we get to that party and it's really boring, so we decided to go to a different one. And the party that we were about to go through was being thrown by the kid that I really liked. So I start hanging out with him when we get there. I'm drinking a lot, having so much fun, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And I didn't know where anything was at all, so I grabbed my friend and we're looking around everywhere for the bathroom. Because when I asked him, he was super drunk and really couldn't explain to me where the bathroom was. So we were pretty much left to fend for ourselves. But we ended up not being able to find a bathroom, and this is where I had to improvise. So my friend and I go to the laundry room, and we see the litter box in there for the cat. Well, at this point, I was desperate, so I just went in the litter box. Well, 30 minutes later, the cops show up to the party. And everybody had to hurry up and leave because we did not want to get underages. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, I went in the litter box, and then the cops showed up. We all ran because we didn't want to get underages. I was able to sneak back into my house without anybody knowing. But when I get to school on Monday, everybody's talking about the party. And apparently the kid that I liked who threw the party, his parents didn't know that he threw one at all. And this was like during first period. So I went to text him and ask him if he was grounded because we were supposed to hang out the next day. And I realized that I am blocked. So I'm thinking, what the fuck? Why does he have me blocked? So I told my friend that he blocked me, and she goes, it's probably because he saw what you did in the laundry room. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, there's no fucking way that he knows. Well, because there was a door that led to the outside in the laundry room, there were cameras in there. So everybody saw this video of me. People were posting it on their Finstas, posting it on their Snapchat stories. It was so fucking embarrassing. Not to mention, the bitch that I hate who lives next door showed my parents the fucking video, and I was grounded for fucking 4 months. Story time about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So a little background information. This had all started as soon as my dad left my mom and I. I was like 13 around the time. Well, ever since then, my mom would have different guys in and out of the house all the time. Like, we were lucky if a month went by and she was still with the same dude. Which, I mean, I kind of get it because my dad did leave us for a woman that he had started another family with. But at the same time, it was just a whole mess. Anyway, so she had got with this new guy, and we're gonna call him Tyler. And by the way, the dudes that she would date, they would literally live at our house. Anyway, so a week after he moved in, I started getting really close to him, which usually never happens. Usually I would try to keep my distance because I knew how wrong it was of her having all these different guys in the house when I'm only 16. Anyways, every time that my mom would go to work, he would invite me to go see a movie, and he would just be really flirty with me. And he was only 6 years older than me, and my mom was 32. You do the math. Anyways, like for part 2. Part 2 about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So like I said, the guy was being super flirty with me, inviting me to the movies when my mom wasn't home and all that stuff. Well, then it led to more than just that. By the way, this guy did not have a job, so he was home with me 24/7. And I was doing online school. So we were in the house by ourselves, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. Anyways, like I said, it led to more, and we started doing the nasty and stuff. Ew, just, yeah. Well, the one day after we got done doing the nasty in my mom's room, we had fell asleep. And yes, we did not have clothes on. Well, at 2 in the morning, I hear someone pounding on the bedroom door, and my mom worked night shifts. So we get up, he hurries up and gets dressed and tells me to hide under the bed, and he opens the door, and it's my mom's sister. My sister literally lived in the apartment next door, and she was like, oh yeah, neither of you were answering the phone, so she wanted me to check on you guys, like, where's Elena? And I'm still under the bed naked, like for part 3. Part 3 about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So like I said, I'm laying under the bed, no clothes on. She asks where I am. And he's like, oh, she should be in her room. So he goes looking for me everywhere. with her. And he's like, oh, well, maybe she's outside on the patio. And I don't know why the hell my mom's sister had a key to our apartment anyways. But she's still looking for me in the apartment, and she looks under the fucking bed. And at first she's like, oh my god, what did he do to you? And I'm trying to tell her nothing, like I made that decision on my own. So she calls my mom right away. My mom comes home, she's screaming at me, and she kicks me out. So I go to my grandma's house, and I told my grandma what happened. And my grandma calls her, and she's like, it's not her fault that you gave her daddy issues. And I'm like, bruh, what the fuck? Child, anyways, so then she goes on Facebook and starts posting about how I'm a whore and a slut and how, like, it isn't her boyfriend's fault at all. So now, story time, my dad got my half-brother's girlfriend pregnant. A little background information. This all happened a few years ago. Anyways, my brother was fresh out of high school and he had been dating this girl named Serena for 2 years. And my dad, for some reason, hated her. At least that's what we thought. Well, my brother didn't have a license at the time, so every time that she came over, she needed somebody to drop her off at home. So my dad would always offer to drop her off at home, even though he literally hated her. And he could have just ordered her an Uber, which is what he did with all of my friends. Well, the one night her parents called and they were like, hey, like, is Serena still there? She hasn't came home yet. And my dad said that he was dropping her off. So I called my dad and he said that they ran out of gas on the side of the road. So that was just like one incident. Well, the next morning my mom goes to get in the car for work and she finds a thong in the car. So she brings it in the house and she asks me, hey, is this yours? Meanwhile, I had never seen them before. So then she goes and asks my half-brother and my dad's whose they are, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my dad got my half-brother's girlfriend pregnant. So like I said, my mom found that thong in the car. She came and asked me if it was mine. I said no. So then she asked my dad and my brother whose they were. So she asked my dad first. He said, I don't know whose they are. He said they probably just fell out of Serena's bag. And then she asked my brother. And my brother said, oh, those are Serena's. So after that, my brother came in my room. And he was like, do you think it's weird that the same underwear that Serena was wearing before she left ended up in the car? So I guess she had the underwear on literally before she fucking left the house. Dumb bitch alert. Anyway, so a few weeks later, Serena breaks up with my brother. Well, around the same time, my dad started staying after work really late, like every day of the week. Well, long story short, my mom went through his phone because she felt like something was going on, and she reads a conversation between my dad and Serena. Like, oh, I'm so sad that you couldn't come to the ultrasound. So then my mom and him divorced, and he's currently raising his child with Serena. Story time, my boyfriend found out that his best friend got me pregnant. It was my junior year in high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for 4 months. Well, the one night him, his friend, and I were all supposed to go to this party. My boyfriend ended up getting called into work that night, so his friend and I went. Which my boyfriend was fine with because he wanted his best friend to keep an eye on me, but he also trusted us. Anyway, so his friend and I ended up going to the party, and then but the next morning I woke up, I didn't remember that at all. So fast forward, I find out that I'm pregnant. Well, me forgetting that I totally cheated on my boyfriend, I thought that it was his. Well, a week later, I get a text from his friend. And he's like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what are we gonna do? So then he filled me in on the whole situation that I didn't remember. But I was like, there's really no chance of this because my boyfriend and I fucked like a million times and me and you fucked once. The real tea is that my boyfriend was black and his friend was white. Well, me being the ass bitch that I am, I was like, well, let's just wait it out. I bet it's not his, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend found out that his best friend got me pregnant. So like I said, my boyfriend was black, his best friend was white, and because I doubted that it was his best friend's kid, I decided to wait it out. Say it with me, bad idea. So fast forward, I'm in the delivery room and I decide not to have my boyfriend in there. Well, let's just say good thing that he did. Bitch, whenever this thing popped out, it was white as fucking paper. So I was like to the doctor, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have a panic attack. Please get the baby out of the room. I don't want anybody around the baby right now. So when my boyfriend came back in the room, I was like, oh, we can't see the baby. He's having some issues. He's over here freaking out. I'm having a fucking panic attack about what I'm gonna do. And they brought my kid back and I was like, that's not my kid. And this girl looked so confused. She was like, oh, okay. And my boyfriend and I are laughing. We're like, oh, haha, that's funny. Then she comes back into the room and she's like, ma'am, this is your kid. So my boyfriend started screaming, and he broke up with me after that. Like, how rude to just leave me with a kid by myself. No, I'm just joking. I know that was pretty fucked. Alright, so story time about the girl who posted all of my secrets onto social media. Just like a quick little thing. While I was reading her submission, I realized that the story time reminds me of the one scene in Grand Army where I forget his name, but somebody had got a hold of his essay and posted it and kind of outed him to the whole school. I mean, this is really nothing like that, but it kind of has the same context, like where her stuff was posted onto social media. So a little background information. So this all happened my sophomore year of high school. I was 14, about to turn 15. Now, I know you may be thinking that I'm really young. It's because I skipped a grade. Because I actually used to be good at school before this whole situation. You know, before I fell into my depression. So let me tell you a little bit about like my school life. I was not popular by any means. I was kind of just like your average person. I had my own friend group. I wasn't really hated by anybody. I did really good in school. I mean, obviously, like, I skipped a grade. But yeah, no, I pretty much had a normal life, except for my home life wasn't too good. My parents were very, very abusive. Not physically, but mentally. So school was like my escape from my home life. Now, aside from me being kind of like the normal neutral person in school, there was like a lot of drama around like my friend group, I would say, but I wasn't really a part of it. I don't know. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Don't ask me. But to cope with everything, I kept a journal. Just writing down my thoughts really helped me process things that would happen in my life. And nobody knew that I had this journal, and I would take it everywhere with me because it was not safe at my home. Because if my parents or my siblings would have found it, it just would have been a whole war zone. Well, the one day I'm at school and during gym class, they were pretty much doing maintenance on the locker rooms. So everybody had to keep like their gym bags and everything on the bleachers. And I didn't have a bag specifically for gym. I literally just brought my book bag and would carry that everywhere with me because we were allowed to carry our book bags around school at this time. Whereas now, because of school shootings and everything like that, we're not allowed to. But anyways, my journal was in there. Well, this gym class, it was just starting to get nice outside, so we had to go outside to the field. And we left all of our stuff on the bleachers in the gym. Wasn't really worried about it because I didn't think anybody was going to go through my stuff. But after gym, we all went and grabbed our stuff, and that day, everybody who was in that gym class had made pretty much like reports about their stuff missing. Now, I didn't check my bag until like the next period because after that I had art and I didn't really need anything out of my book bag for that. And I was like, oh, well, nobody's really going to go in my bag. I don't have anything special in there. Well, when I got home that day, I realized that my journal is missing. Like, out of all things. Like, you could have took my phone, could have took my beats, you take my journal. That's a low blow on your part. So at this point, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, OMG, did somebody take it? But then I started thinking logically. I'm like, who the hell would steal my journal? Like, if anything, I probably just left it in somebody's class. So the next day, I get to school and I go to all of my teachers' classrooms in the morning and I start asking if they found a journal anywhere. Nope. Nobody had seen my journal. So then I had went to the principal's office to tell him that my journal was missing out of my book bag, and he pretty much said there's nothing I can do. We're looking into the situation and we're trying to find out who was the one who went around and pretty much stole everybody's shit. So at this point, I'm like, oh, that's great. You know, like, they don't even know who freaking did it yet. Now, I know it was like a day after, but still, you know, you would think they would be checking cameras. But, oh, wait. Oh, yeah, that's right. They did not keep cameras in the gymnasium. Yeah, no, they don't have cameras anywhere apparently. It's like you're literally asking for everybody's shit to get stolen. So a week had passed after that. Nobody had heard anything about anybody's stuff being missing. I mean, there were like 2 kids who got their phones stolen and they were able to find them through like the pinging on like the iPhones. So they got their stuff back, but yeah. So after a week of my journal not turning up anywhere, I decided to go buy a new one. And after a few weeks have passed, they still couldn't find it. I'd hoped that they were gonna find it, but after they didn't, I kind of just thought like, oh, maybe someone was playing like a mean prank or something like that and just going through, grabbing kids' stuff, you know, and just throwing it away, or yeah, I don't really know. So everything had pretty much went back to normal until probably 2 months until school ended. I had gotten tagged on an Instagram post, and the name of this account was my name and then exposed, and they were following a bunch of people from my school. And once you see somebody's name in your school and then exposed after, you're kind of like, oh, what is this? Like, you know how random kids in school will make those exposing pages, you know, and just like post whoever's get around? I don't know if that's happened at anybody else's school, but it happened at mine, and it happened multiple times. Like, weirdos would make these accounts and just like post inappropriate pictures on there, and then the pages would get taken down. Anyways, so the post that I was tagged in was a picture of what I had wrote in my journal. And this was a very personal post, pretty much about what was going on in my home life. I mean, by the time I had clicked on like the thing, there were like 20 pages already posted on there. It wasn't like just one page was posted. No, there were 20 pages whenever I opened up the app. Like, one of the pages that was posted was about how my dad put me on a diet so I wouldn't look like a whale in the summertime, and how whenever everybody was eating dinner at my house, they would all have, you know, a normal meal that my mom made, or they would all be eating out and I would have to eat a salad. Like, I was forced to. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be skinny or fat. And then there was another page that was posted, and this one just like completely pretty much ruined my school life. So of course, this being my journal, I'm going to write about things that happen in my life or other things that people tell me. One of my best friends had been cheating on her boyfriend with a mutual friend of ours. And I'll read my exact quote. My best friend is cheating on her boyfriend with our mutual friend's boyfriend. I don't know what to do. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, it's my best friend and it's girl code. But then on the other hand, it's about my morals and about the fact that nobody should ever have to go through that. I'm looking for answers. Help. Clearly it was a freaking rhetorical question. Like, I did not have an audience. Now, clearly this was bad for me because our mutual best friend, she would sit at our lunch table, she would hang out with us after school, and her boyfriend was one of our best friends. So I hurry up and I try to call my best friend. She didn't pick up. She did not want to talk to me at all. So I decided not to go to school. Clearly my parents weren't going to let me stay home, so I literally just took the bus and walked to the mall and kind of just hung out at the food court all day until school was over, because I just did not know what the hell to do. Well, eventually I had to go to school, or else my parents were going to get a call and then I was going to get in even more trouble. So in the morning I run into my best friend in the bathroom and I try talking to her there, and she was with a few of our other friends, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm really sorry about what happened. You know, like, my journal got stolen. I didn't know that somebody was going to go and post about everything. And she was pretty much a bitch. But I mean, I don't know how I would have acted in that situation either. But she was like, to be honest, you're really freaking weird. Who just writes their friends' secrets down in a journal? Like, are you obsessed with me? And I'm like, no, like, that's just how I cope with things. She's like, oh, so you cope with things by writing my personal stuff down in your journal? She was like, is that how you get off at night? Like, your obsession with me is absolutely ridiculous. She was like, to be honest, I don't even feel comfortable being your friend anymore. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much how that went. And then to make it even better, while we are standing there, I get tagged in another post. And I guess at this point she had like her post notifications on for that Instagram page because her phone went off at the same time mine did. She wasn't even tagged in the post or anything. So you want to talk about who has the real obsession here? Just kidding. And this one was even worse than what had just been posted. Now I know you're thinking, how the heck could it be worse? Because now I had lost all my friends. I was sitting in the bathroom at lunch. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody would literally have conversations around me because they were afraid that I was gonna write it in a journal and then it'd be posted on this random freaking Instagram account. So a little background information on this Instagram post. So the one day I had got to school super late, and the night before I had been up all night arguing with my family, so I didn't really have time to do my homework. So as soon as I got to school that day, I went to the bathroom and started doing my homework in there. Well, one of the popular girls in my school was in there, and this was just about probably right before I had lost my journal, and I heard her throwing up in the bathroom. So I had made some noise in there, kind of just like to let her know that I was in there. Don't really know why, but then I had also like said, hey, are you okay? And as soon as I did that, stops throwing up, walks out of the stall, and just says, mind your fucking business, bitch. So after I finished my homework and went home from school that day, hey guys, future me popping in, trigger warning, we're going to be talking about ED. If you want to skip ahead, I will put the timestamp somewhere right here. I wrote in my journal that either I thought this girl was pregnant or she was bulimic. Was that right on my part? No, definitely not. But this girl was really petite and it could have been. I mean, that's just what I thought. And yeah, that is the page that was posted. After that, I would say I was pretty hated by everybody because everybody thought that I was making fun of her for either being pregnant or being bulimic, when really that was not the case at all. I was just saying what I thought, like it's my journal. Like I didn't say, oh, she's bulimic. No, I said, I think she might be bulimic or pregnant. So yeah, no, pretty much I was hated by the whole school. And I had got called into the principal's office that day for bullying. And because this was so serious and she actually did have an eating disorder, I got suspended. And I had to write her a handwritten apology because I pretty much outed her eating disorder to everybody. Not even my fault. Which later on I had got a Snapchat from her that day of her throwing my apology letter into the trash can and saying fuck your apology. I didn't take offense though because now everybody knew. So pretty much after this kept happening, I went into a very, very, very bad depression. I wouldn't eat. I would not sleep. I did not want to go to school anymore. I was very badly falling behind in school. My grades were super bad, pretty much because I would just like hang out in the bathroom during school and not even go to class because there would be comments being made about me and just a lot of things that I was not mentally strong enough to deal with. My parents had found the Instagram page and they hated me even more than they did before now. Like they pretty much blew off the whole part where I had talked about all the shitty things that they did to me and pretty much only talked about the fact that I had outed this girl's eating disorder and how this is why I have no friends because I'm weird. Another trigger warning, self-harm. I will put a timestamp down below again. At this point I had started cutting. It was the only way that I felt like I had control. Eventually, the only good thing my parents ever did for me was put me in therapy. But my therapist pretty much just said that I was the problem every single time. Every single time. I told her about the fact that my journal had got out and she did not care. She was like, well, like, why were you writing people's secrets down in your journal? I don't know, Linda. I don't know. So the one day my guidance counselor had called me into her office to talk about how terrible I was doing in school. And when she asked me what was wrong, I kind of just broke down. I told her about the Instagram page, I told her about the journal, I told her about my ED, my self-harming. And she was like, well, have you went to the principal about this? And I was like, no, because I literally got freaking suspended for something that wasn't even my fault. So she pretty much just looked at me like I was freaking dumb. The principal really didn't know about the Instagram page. I had never told him. Neither did the other girl. She pretty much just said that I had outed her to everybody and stuff. She never mentioned anything about posting or Instagram or anything like that. So my guidance counselor called the principal into her office also, and she pretty much was like, okay, like, tell him everything that you just told me. Once I had pretty much told him everything, he just looked at me like I was an idiot. He was like, you know, if you would have came to us whenever all this stuff was happening, we would have been able to find out who had stolen everybody's stuff, who was posting all this stuff much sooner. But by this time, all the damage had already been done to my life, so what was this gonna do? So I was like, oh, like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, we'll contact the authorities. And so it was a Friday that day, by the way, and I was also grounded for like 4 months straight. So that Monday I had been called into the principal's office, and he pretty much just told me, we found out who stole everybody's stuff, who was posting on this account on social media. Their parents have been contacted. They both have been suspended. And I was like, well, can you tell me who the hell it was? Like, who just ruined my whole life? They were like, no, we have to keep that confidential. We can't tell who it was. Like, a lot of people's secrets were outed on that Instagram page, like, including my own, and yet they couldn't tell me who the hell orchestrated this whole thing. So the Instagram page was taken down, and after that I pretty much just had to live with the consequences of these two kids' actions, which eventually I found out that one of the girls was a junior and one of the girls was a senior, and one of them was actually my cousin. How lovely. Can't even trust your own family. So everybody pretty much in school still hated me. I did end up becoming friends with my best friend again. It was not at all how our friendship used to be. I know you're probably thinking that it's worse, but it actually had gotten better. Except for the fact that anytime she told me anything, she would be like, you're not gonna write this in your journal, are you? No, I don't keep a journal anymore. Anytime that I think about writing down my thoughts or anything, I literally get PTSD from everything that had happened my sophomore year. But my parents still hated me. Not a surprise, they always have. But eventually my guidance counselor, she had taken a look at the Instagram, and she did start to look into my family issues and about how my mental health was not that great. So somebody had started calling CPS, and I know it was low-key her, but like, she wasn't gonna say that it was her, because unlike a lot of school guidance counselors, this one actually had cared about my well-being and everything. And eventually my parents got tired of them coming to the house, so they just sent me to live with my grandmother. So in a way, things did start to get better, but it was very, very rough during that whole time. Like, you know those things that happen when you're a teenager where you think like you're never gonna get over it, and it's just like gonna spiral down from that, like your life is never gonna get better? That was pretty much where I was at in life. But yeah, no, when I moved to my grandma's, I actually had taken all of my old journals, because every time that I would fill one up, I would just get a new one from the school because they had like extra notebooks and stuff like that. The one night we had a fire outside and it was getting pretty late, and my grandma was like, oh, do you want to stay out here and just like, you know, put out the fire whenever you're ready to come in? I was like, yeah, that's fine. While I was sitting there, I decided that I wanted to burn every single journal that I had, even though I had always liked the idea of having them around, so that way, you know, whenever I got older, I could possibly show my kids and just be like, listen, you know, like, I went through hard times too. But at that point, I was like, fuck a journal.
Tender touch, drum glove, staying up just to talk to you. You stayed in touch, 2 continents, through all odds. Seems every night, yeah, all the time I'm calling out to you. Seems every time I take a drink, I'm reaching out for you.
Am I the asshole for fake sleeping all night to see if my wife is lying? The past couple of months, my wife has been complaining about our cats. She's been claiming that the cats wake her up constantly and that she's frustrated every night that she has to get up and open the door for the cats. Or the cats keep making noises, or the cats keep jumping on her. It got me to the point where she started saying she wants me to get rid of them. I've told her I've never seen or heard any of this, but she claims I sleep through it all. She kept telling me that she was getting less and less sleep and kept acting aggressive, blaming lack of sleep from the cats and that if I didn't get rid of them, she'd leave me. I legitimately started considering giving the cats to my sister until I noticed something. One morning, she claimed she had gotten up multiple times throughout the night to help the cats. She listed a bunch of times. I thought it was weird because I had been up until 4 a.m. and she claimed that she got up at 1 a.m. to open the door for them and a few times around 3 a.m. because they were meowing and jumping on her. I was in the bedroom the entire time while she slept, and I know none of this happened. Things weren't adding up, so I decided to run a test. I waited until she said she was going to bed, then I let the cats out of our bedroom. I lowered my phone brightness and faked going to sleep. I just laid there in my bed for the entire night bored, but I definitely did not fall asleep. I made sure to make timestamps every 30 minutes on my phone through Discord just to be sure. I marked down every noise my cats made. One cat had jumped down from something and made a little noise around 3:18 a.m. and one ate food relatively quietly by the bedroom door at 4:57 a.m. Other than that, nothing happened. Sure enough, my wife slept from 11 p.m. until 9 a.m. and that morning she claimed she had woken up at least 7 times to open doors from the cat noises and cats jumping on her. At this point, I was pissed because she was clearly lying to me. I was exhausted and fed up with the lies, so I bluntly called her out on it. I told her, that's funny, I stayed up all night to monitor the cats and they weren't even in the room at all last night. I have timestamps and everything, so you've been lying to me and trying to convince me to get rid of my cats? Why? She just sat there quietly shaking and looking pissed, then got up and left without answering. She came back hours later and ignored me whenever I talked, and when I asked her how I'm the bad guy in the situation, she finally said that I was treating her like a child by lying about sleeping and staying up all night just to see if she was lying or not. And that making timestamps and everything as if I was an investigator was going too far and makes me an obsessive asshole. I did it because she was threatening to make me get rid of the cats or she'd leave me, and her claims didn't add up. So am I the obsessive asshole here? Update, my wife has been Baker acted. She did not hurt herself, just said something concerning in public. I got a call from the hospital this morning asking me to head over to some family therapy. Apparently she finally wanted to talk. I'll be honest, I'm pretty pissed at the reason why she's been so hateful towards my cats. It's absolutely insane. It's nothing that anyone has suggested. She's not cheating, she's not sick physically or mentally, she's not bored of the relationship or looking for an out. According to her, one of the cats stepped on her laptop and ruined a story she was writing. She's hated both cats ever since. I mean, that sucks, but it's not worth trying to emotionally blackmail me into getting rid of them. I asked her why she didn't just tell me the truth and why she'd been lying and refused to talk about it when I asked. Her answer was, because you wouldn't have gotten rid of them otherwise, and explained that when she saw I wasn't willing to abandon them for her, she took offense and made it a goal to have me pick her over them. Sickening. Don't know why she actually admitted to it all. The woman with us asked me how I felt about all of it, and I just told the truth. I told her it was a nice run, but I'm probably going to want a divorce. I was asked why, and I told them. I see a new hateful, malicious side of her that I want nothing to do with. She was so set on getting rid of the cats over a fan fiction being ruined that she manipulated her husband. My wife started shouting at me that I betrayed her and that I was scum for choosing animals over her. At least cats don't give ultimatums like she gave. It sucks that she's been Baker acted and all, I guess, but it's for the best right now. She'll have time to process it in a safe environment and hopefully come to terms with it. Bad husband, I know. I'm almost sure I'm going for divorce. I'm very worried about having her in the same house as my cats. I want my cats safe and I don't want to worry about them being harmed or disappearing. Screw that. I'll do what almost all of you suggested. Keep the cats, rehome the wife. Not how I wanted it to end, but life isn't always nice.
My 69-year-old mother-in-law, Sandra, is a weird woman. She even refers to herself as that. She has random outbursts, hyperfixations, tics, and struggles immensely with social cues. She hasn't been diagnosed with anything, so I won't speculate. When I first met my husband's family, I noticed that all of them, except my husband, made fun of Sandra and her quirks. For example, we were having dinner one night and my mother-in-law couldn't stop talking about flowers. She loves plants and nature and is super knowledgeable about it. My sister-in-law made a comment making fun of her and everybody at the table laughed about it. Sandra got extremely embarrassed and didn't talk for the rest of the night. This kind of behavior is normal in the family and I despise it. I get so angry whenever someone makes fun of Sandra because she's just a kind, lovely woman that I just can't fathom why they would do that. I've had a lot of conversations about this with my husband and even fights when he laughs about the jokes. We have a 15-year-old son named Alex and my biggest fear is coming true. Alex has started to pick up on the behavior around him and has been laughing at Sandra. I've talked to him about why laughing at her is bullying and how that behavior is inappropriate, etc., but Alex doesn't seem to care. 2 weeks ago we went to see Sandra. My brother and sister-in-law were there along with their families. Sandra looked very happy. While catching up, she randomly started clapping. This is one of her tics that appear when she's excited. My brother-in-law made a comment poking fun of her and the whole family started laughing, including my husband and Alex. Sandra got teary-eyed and had to excuse herself to the bathroom. I have I've never been more furious. While on our way home, I chewed my husband and son out and told them not to speak to me until they apologized to Sandra. I told them that I don't want to hear a single word directed to me until they reflect on how their actions are hurtful and disgusting. 2 weeks have passed and I haven't spoken to them. Not a single word, because they've made 0 attempts to apologize to Sandra. My husband is telling me that I'm being petty and hurting Alex. He's also mad at me for valuing my relation with Sandra more than my relation with them. In my mind, I'm not doing that, but my husband says that I'm being an asshole. Am I wrong for refusing to talk to them until they apologize to Sandra? My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. No, he was 325 pounds, I was 120 pounds. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day, while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too and I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that effing lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me, but by this time my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took our kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not effing real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises and I became aware of pain. A shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out and I was completely confused. At some point, cops scooped me up, drag/walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. He took me to the hospital and I got CT scans and stuff. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep, hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He's perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says.
This is why you should always watch what you say in public. In the late 1970s, a man began breaking into homes in order to assault the families inside of them. After dozens of attacks and no suspects in custody, the citizens were totally on edge, so the police decide to host this town hall meeting so they can discuss the situation out in public. During the meeting, a local man stands up and says, "I would totally kick that guy's ass if he came anywhere near my wife." Then, in a crazy, ironic turn of events, that angry man and his wife become the next victims. Following their assault, the attacker completely changes his behavior. He goes from kind of petty home invader to full-blown serial killer, targeting only married men and their wives. When decades later, police finally identify Joseph D'Angelo as the killer, as they're going through old photos from the case, they make a startling discovery about his motives. D'Angelo had attended that town hall meeting. Ever wonder what would happen if you stopped sleeping? During World War II, the Russians wanted to find a way to keep their soldiers awake longer, so they came up with this awful experiment where they took prisoners of war, put them in a gas chamber, and then exposed them to experimental drugs to see how long they could keep them awake for. Initially, the drugs seemed great. The first 4 days, the subjects were agitated, but were normal. By day 5, they stopped interacting with each other and began acting extremely paranoid. On day 9, one of the subjects screamed for so long that he tore his vocal cord. On day 14, they started eating themselves. When they turned off the gas on day 15, all of the subjects began screaming in pain, begging for them to turn the gas back on. When they didn't, they all fell asleep and died.
So in 5th grade, my sister was dating this guy named Isaiah. And I know 5th grade is really young, but they actually ended up dating for like 5 months. Anyway, so Valentine's rolls around and my sister gets Isaiah this beautiful box of chocolate. And it was a low-key bougie kind of chocolate. You know that chocolate that tastes really good. So she gets to school and Isaiah got her some chocolate too. So she was like, okay. So she's really happy about it. And then she goes to eat it and realizes that it tastes like shit. And her being in 5th grade, she was really offended by this. Like, wow, you really got me some shitty chocolate. So at recess, she was crying and crying and crying and she was really upset about it. So anyway, she gets on the bus and I sit next to her and she's just crying about it. She's like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is so rude. And I was like, it'll be okay. Like, he's a bad boyfriend, this and that. So we get to our bus stop and we're getting off the bus and my sister collapses on the floor and starts screaming and crying. And my bus driver looks at her and goes, what is wrong with you? And I go with my 5th grade lisp, boy problems.